Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Bible smack. All right. We are on a special class today. We are still doing New Year's Cosmology class number 15, The Shifting Universe. All right, now, some things I put in a certain order. And I didn't know if somebody would criticize me because I hadn't put this class out yet, but nobody got around to it. But basically, we were talking about issues of geocentrism, and there is a issue that I did not address yet, and that was not only accounting for the spin of the Earth by the spin of the universe, but a shift, the shifting or tilting of the Earth for the seasons, and we will explain that today. Now let me go ahead though. I want to cover the last class. There was a couple minutes cut off, not a whole lot. But basically we're talking about last class, the windows of heaven. And with the windows of heaven being the ice canopy, 2 points that I wanted to make. Number one, the satellites that hang over the Earth. The satellites that we have, they just kind of stick right there above the location. They don't move or whatever. They're just, well, I mean, they move in some way, but basically, they're just hovering. Let's say you're a satellite over Florida, you're just over Florida, okay? So, how do we account that? Well, basically, as I was talking about, we have an electromagnetic universe as well, and we covered that, I believe, in class number 10. If I'm wrong, well, 11, 12, just watch them all. All right. But basically it's called handling my light work. Now, these satellites are kept there by the electromagnetic force, and of course the Earth has an electromagnetic field, and it's got lots of electromagnetic things. You think about the Allen belts and stuff. But that's what's holding them there by that force. Some people argue maybe it's a Mach's principle and stuff like that. We've gone over that, which it could still be, but basically that's just where I'm putting my money on right now, is that it's an electromagnetic force instead of a gravity force. Now, also, something to understand, the Bible talks about the pillars of heaven. It talks about the pillars of the earth. Now, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit, but in my class dealing with a globed earth and stuff like that. But basically the pillars are underneath the earth's crust. And basically there's a lot of subterranean waters. So the pillars would be the earth that's holding up the earth's crust in between these subterranean layers of water. So that's what's going on there. So then, is the pillars of heaven something literal? Because why does the heaven need pillars? Basically, I believe that the ice canopy above the earth may have had more of a design than we would just normally imagine. Because we're still thinking, well, science means it's all chaotic. And it's like, no, God has design. So basically, it would probably match the Earth's electromagnetic field. And what you see with the Earth's electromagnetic field is you see this crisscrossing pattern. Well, maybe that crisscrossing pattern, the electromagnetic field, would match this frozen, and I talked about how like hydrogen can take on metallic properties. And of course, even when you have like the waters, you would naturally have hydrogen underneath those waters because the hydrogen rises above the earth. So basically the hydrogen take on metallic properties, and it would probably take on that design following the Earth's electromagnetic field. Okay, so that would keep it in place and order. It has some architecture there. So that's what's going on there. Also, you might notice that it looks like a New Year's ball. All right. we're actually going to talk about, and nobody really asked me much, like why you call it New Year's cosmology. Well, basically, New Year's cosmology is a little bit different from the regular geocentrism, okay? It's trying to take all the implications of creation science and dealing with the implications of geocentricity. When I talked to some of the leading geocentrists, there wasn't a whole lot of interaction between, reconciling these two. One fellow I talked to, he basically said that he believed, he was a Catholic fellow, he said that he believed in the earth being 6,000 years old. He believed in the Great Flood. He believed those things by faith. And that their system was not really focused on those ideas. It was focused on the ideas of geocentricity. And you can see that because geocentricity has to deal with practical science. So we could do experiments today and see, is the universe spinning around us? But when we go in the past, well, then we get into a lot of speculation. So you have to overcome some of those hurdles. All right, so that's what was going on last class. And now we're also talking about what's going on today. Because there is two different motions that we're dealing with, okay? We have to deal with a spinning universe, but we also have to deal with a tilting universe. And the tilt that we would usually go on with saying the tilt of the Earth, what's that? That's for the seasons. And of course, in the heliocentric model, the Earth takes a year to go around the sun, right? So we have that model of that motion of 1 year. Then you have the spin of the Earth, which we would say is the spin of the universe, which is 1 day. So we have the 24-hour movement and we have the annual movement, okay? And so now we have a whole shifting universe. It takes about a year, okay, with this year cycle. So year, okay, looks like a New Year's ball, the year cycle. The Earth hangeth upon nothing. It's electromagnetically connected to everything. When we see evidence of that, when we're looking at that cosmic microwave background radiation core that they call, they align with the axis of evil. So, here's where we're going here. You have a spin of the universe that goes around in a 24-hour cycle. A lot of guys would say, hey, that goes faster than the speed of light. Therefore it's crazy, which is kind of funny because we go back to the Big Bang Theory, and they believe that the universe is currently expanding under superstring theory. They believe it's currently expanding faster than the speed of light, okay? They believe that space itself just expanded faster than the speed of light for cosmic inflation, okay? It's funny how they pick and choose what needs to be mathematically possible. I mean, we look at these black holes, and everywhere they've seen these black holes, and the regular black hole that they would calculate, because we don't actually see, okay? We don't see black holes, we see black space, and we say, black hole's there because we know there's movement going around. So, they would assume these things, and they do the gravitational calculations, and they found out that mathematically, gravity, being a weaker force, does not have the power to make black holes. So black holes are mathematically impossible. And they're probably explained by something electromagnetic with electromagnetic force. But they discovered bigger and bigger and bigger ones in the center of all these galaxies. What are they? Oh, they're not black holes. But basically, they have no problem with the math being insurmountable when it's their model. Okay? The math, it makes sense. 2 plus 2 always equals 4. The question is, do you always have 2 plus 2? Okay, that's the issue. And that's where math has to take a back seat to observation. We have to go by observations and then work out the math. Okay? But if we are missing observations, then the math doesn't matter. Okay? There's always going to be factors that you have to refigure. It's just like when people have to do their budget. Okay, you have to readjust everything every time there's something new to come into play. If you want to buy this, it's going to upset the whole system. Okay, so going back to it, the 24-hour cycle is going faster than the speed of light, and therefore it's the Coriolis forces are going so fast that the universe is not noticing it. We can notice it because we're stationary. okay? But then the sun and the planets, they are not noticing it. They are kept protected within the ether, being driven with the electromagnetic force. And the electromagnetic force is everywhere, the light's everywhere, all that kind of stuff. We have a whole this plasmatic universe, and everything's kind of being protected within this shell right here, okay? So if it's being protected within the shell, the sun, when it's spinning around, it's not really doing any movement itself. It's just being carried along, okay? And the sun has this gravity. And the sun is carrying all the other planets along. So a lot of them, they'll bring up stuff like Neptune. You know, it's like, well, Neptune's over here. And how's that going? Well, the sun is carrying it along. The sun interacts with the Earth electromagnetically. There are electromagnetic portals. And basically, it'll, as the sun spins, it breaks and then starts up and breaks and starts up. And so the Earth, having this electromagnetic connection with the rest of the universe, it's basically pivoting. And it's pivoting off. And basically, while it's doing that, the whole gravity of the solar system is going with it. And if you were on the sun, okay, which you can't be on the sun, but if you were on the sun, you would think that the solar system is going around the sun because the sun is acting as what we call an anchor, okay? The sun has more mass, it has more weight. Its gravitational energy is taking everything with it. And that makes one annual cycle, okay? Now, it's also going around in this day cycle, but it's not noticing it, okay? So you have the day cycle that's spinning around, and then if you are inside this shell of the Coriolis forces, you're not noticing that day cycle, with some exceptions. We notice the spin of the galaxies, okay? Hey, there's something going on there. We notice the redshift. Hey, there's something going on there, which we recognize as heat from the friction of the spin, okay? So basically, there are some evidences of this. It's not going to show everything because it's still being protected, but it's giving us a leak into the fact that there is a spinning universe. But there is something else. There is the shifting, okay, or the tilting. Now, there was a scientist in the turn of the 20th century, the early 20th century. His name was George F. Dodwell, and he was from Australia. And in Australia, they love to do a lot of science because that different part of the globe can show us a lot of different things that we can't see up above the northern hemisphere. So basically, he was starting to notice this tilt, okay, which he assumed, of course, is the tilt of the Earth, okay? As I said, geocentrically, we'd say that's the tilt of the universe. But going back to him, he notices this tilt, all right? And he started doing measurements on the tilt of all these stars going back and forth for the seasons. What he discovered was that the tilt is slowly increasing. So if you go back in time, it slowly decreases. And it goes back to about 2345 BC. That's the estimation. Well, a lot of things happen, and that is a good estimation for the time of Noah's flood. You get the shifting right here and Noah's flood. All right, now that would mean that if the universe is shifting, the universal shift started at the time of Noah's flood. So here we see there's a shifting universe that starts in time. This spinning universe was created when God made it, okay, probably day 4. But basically, that was created as God is putting together space and time, okay, kind of a transcendent type of deal. But this shift is within the universe. And this shift starts up at the time of the flood. And you'd say, well, hey, if there's a shifting universe inside space and time, wouldn't that cause that would cause catastrophes. Yeah, I agree. It did cause catastrophes. So, you had these supernovas. Okay? These supernovas are going on, and I believe that it's the shifting universe, the ether force, and the pressure upon these stars which is starting to cause these explosions. Okay? And we're going to go over this intergalactic catastrophe in our next class. But as we go over here, we also notice that the pole star, okay, which we would say is the North Star, astronomers have noticed, and I think they got it by calculation. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they got it by calculation. See, before 800 BC, it's really hard to historically link up everybody to exact years without the Bible, okay? So, basically, there was some calculations done. And you see, here's my little thing of the Earth right here. And here's our North Star. But this star over here, that's what we call Thuban. Thuban used to be the pole star. It used to be the North Star. Okay? And when we would look up in the sky, if you were around 3000 BC, you would have saw Thuban. So, once again, assuming that the universe is shifting, the actual placement of the universe moved over. Okay? I don't know exactly how that worked. And I could say God did it. Yes, I can. But basically, we know that there is this intergalactic catastrophe that gets started because there's a shifting universe. We notice that there's a shift right there. Now, why do I say that? Well, because they have seen some shifting going on. I should probably do that here. But the shifting that's going on, they call it dark flow. Okay? Because they're going by quantum mechanics and dark matter theory and all this kind of stuff. But they're noticing, they're observing that something's flowing up and down and it's going around the universe. Okay? And I'll put some of that stuff. I think I do have a peer-reviewed reference to it. But I'll go ahead and I put these all in the comment section, okay, of the videos. But basically, we're seeing a dark flow in the universe. It's going back and forth. And by the way, when we look at this is my little rendition of the Milky Way. We're finding a tilting Milky Way, okay? This thing's going back and forth and up and down, floating like a flag. And of course, the solar system is a part of that too, okay? So basically, this thing's going back and forth and up and down and everything. And that is what we are observing, which would go along with the fact that the universe is tilting and the Milky Way is tilting, okay? Part of this intergalactic catastrophe. And yes, they did observe that in the report. They said it's probably an intergalactic catastrophe, which is causing these things to wave like that. Next is we have a tilted solar system. Now, of course, if we're thinking of solar system's a part of the Milky Way, okay, and the solar system is basically going this way to the Milky Way, all right, this is why you got to think about when we start talking about stationary, okay? We're saying that the Earth is tilted to the sun, but then we'll say, well, what was it? I think it's Neptune, it might be Uranus, tilted all the way on its side. Well, how do you know it's on its side? Okay, because the sun is tilted to the Milky Way, and how do you know the Milky Way is stationary? And all this stuff goes nuts, all right? And I hear guys saying, well, you know, this direction's off of that direction, you know. But basically, if you assume that the Earth is stationary, then you can actually make sense of this stuff, okay? This is why we have, that NASA does something called ECIs, Earth-Centered Inertia Frameworks. The ECI framework is basically when they do their rockets and they do their satellites, they launch everything from the Earth and they assume the Earth, starting out as a navigational point, they assume that the Earth is stationary And then they figure everything out from there. They do the math from there because it's a whole lot simpler. When you start getting into heliocentrism, all the math gets screwed up. It's not simple to try to figure out where you're at with, oh, well, this is spinning around here, and spinning around there, and spinning around there, and then that's spinning around there. And what is the centered framework that you want to work from? So it's easier for NASA to go ahead and imagine the truth of geocentricity than it is for them to go by their assumptions of heliocentricity. All right? It just works out a lot easier. And that was supposed to be the reason that we went to heliocentrism, because the math was so much easier. Now, of course, here's one thing, though. The criticism you see a whole lot is they base everything off of criticism of the Ptolemaic system, okay? Where you have the annual cycle and the daily cycle are all one big thing, and we're just sitting here and then everything is just going around us, and yet all these things are moving around other things, okay? Well, there still is gravity, and there still is a sun that's having an annual cycle, okay? Just like the moon has an annual cycle, in reality, it has more of a fast day cycle, okay? But we're not noticing, or actually we're noticing it, but the moon is not noticing the speed, okay? Because here we have this whole spinning universe, and so that spin is not understood because of the spin of the Coriolis effect and stuff like that. So basically everything's carried along, and it's all carried along, all right? So there's an illusion of this of just the annual cycle. But with the annual plus the day cycle, all you got to do, take a camera, and you can get the moon going up and down around the world every day. Okay? So that's basically how that part's working out. But the big deal is that all this stuff is really starting to connect right now. Because we have all this intergalactic catastrophe and everything goes on, and it's all tied to the flood. What's the flood tied to? Sin. Okay? Now, also, you have that verse I read where it talks about in the end times, the stars falling and all this kind of calamity and stuff. Well, if you spin a top, sometimes it gets a little nervous at first, and then it'll straighten out. And then, of course, at the end, it starts to whoop and, go crazy. Okay? So basically, there is damage being done to the universe with this tilt, and things are starting to go crazy, okay? And that is going to the inevitable. But this all started at the time of the punishment for sin. So next episode, we'll go ahead and go over that stuff. But right now, here you see New Year's cosmology in the shifting universe. And we will see you all later. What's a good ending? All right. And this is Bible Smack Ministries. Catch you later.